Today I will be providing you with an overview of pregnancy and breastfeeding accommodation rights. My name is Haley Zock and I am the staff attorney at Southwest Women's Law Center. Let's start today by going over our legal disclaimer. The information provided in this presentation is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be and should not be construed as legal advice. The content presented herein may not be applicable to your specific situation, and reliance on it should be undertaken at your own risk. Always seek the advice of a qualified legal professional regarding any legal issues or concerns you may have. No attorney-client relationship is formed by accessing or using this presentation. The presenter and creators of this presentation disclaim any and all liability for any actions taken or not taken based on the information provided. Now let's go over the federal laws that provide pregnancy and breastfeeding protections at work. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 requires employers to treat pregnancy-related conditions the same as other temporary disabilities for all employment-related purposes, including for accommodation. The Providing Urgent Maternal Protections for Nursing Mothers Act, or the PUMP Act, ensures that nursing workers have accommodations to express milk at work. The Americans with Disabilities Act, commonly known as the ADA, states that while pregnancy itself is not considered a disability under the ADA, complications related to pregnancy may qualify for accommodations. The Federal Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, or PWFA, specifically focuses on assuring accommodations for pregnant workers. Now let's address the New Mexico laws that provide protections for pregnant and breastfeeding workers. In New Mexico, we have the New Mexico Pregnant Worker Accommodation Act, and this requires employers provide reasonable accommodations for employees and job applicants who require them due to pregnancy, childbirth, or related conditions. We also have the New Mexico use of breast pump in the workplace law, and this requires that employers provide a space for using a breast pump that is clean and private, near the employee's workspace, and not a bathroom, and that employers provide breastfeeding employees with flexible break times. So you've probably heard me say reasonable accommodation a few times so far, but what exactly is a reasonable accommodation? So in law, it's stated as a modification or adaptation of the work environment, work schedule, work rules or job responsibilities, and one that is reached through good faith efforts to explore less restrictive or less expensive alternatives to enable an employee to perform the essential functions of the job, and that does not impose an undue hardship on the employer. It's easier to understand what a reasonable accommodation is when I provide you with some examples. The organization A Better Balance provides a wonderful list of examples on their website, including but not limited to light duty or help with manual labor and lifting, temporary transfer to a less physically demanding or less hazardous position, additional longer or flexible breaks to drink water, eat, rest, or of course use the bathroom, changing food or drink policies to allow a worker to have a water bottle or food, changing equipment, devices, or workstation, such as providing a stool to sit on, installing a fan, or adding a lock to a clean meeting room to turn it into a temporary lactation space, making existing facilities easier to use, such as relocating a workstation closer to the bathroom, changing a uniform or dress code like allowing maternity pants, changing a work schedule like having shorter work hours or a later start time to accommodate morning sickness, breaks, private space, not a bathroom, and accommodations for lactation, like what's required under New Mexico law, time off for prenatal or postnatal appointments, remote work or telework, and leave to recover from childbirth, mastitis, pre- or postnatal depression, and more. This is just a list of examples, and it is not limited to this list, so there are many other possibilities of different accommodations. So now that you know what a reasonable accommodation is, and I've provided you with a list of examples of what a reasonable accommodation might look like, how do you ask for that accommodation? So it's important to know your rights and your company's policies. You're learning a bit about your rights today, specifically if you're in New Mexico. You have a little bit more of a background on your rights, hopefully after this PowerPoint. And you also should know your company's policies. Some companies even have just a simple form that you submit through HR or through your boss on requesting that accommodation. It's important that you prepare your request, so think about what accommodations you need and why they're necessary. Consider factors like physical discomfort, medical appointments, or adjustments to workload or schedule. Then schedule a meeting with your boss or prepare an email. Explain the reasoning of why you need the accommodation. So provide a brief explanation of why the accommodation is necessary for your health and well-being during pregnancy. You don't need to disclose personal medical details, but you can if you do feel comfortable doing so. If you meet with your boss or with HR in person, it's important to follow up with this in writing. Send a follow-up email summarizing your conversation and documenting the accommodations you discussed. This ensures clarity and serves as a record of your request. As an attorney, I always find it extremely important to take records of the requests you make so that if later any issues arise or any questions arise, you have a record of when and what requests you did make. You can also seek support if you need. If your request is denied or you encounter resistance to the request, consider seeking support from HR, legal counsel, or relevant advocacy organizations. An example of a relevant advocacy organization is A Better Balance. A Better Balance, a nonprofit organization, has a free and confidential legal helpline for workplace rights, and that number is 1-833-633-3222. There's also Legal Aid at Work. They have a family and work helpline that is free and confidential and helps workers access workplace accommodations. The number for those calling outside of California is 415-593-0033. There's also, if you're in New Mexico, the New Mexico Human Rights Bureau. They offer education sessions to employers, employees, or any other interested groups about preventing discrimination in the workplace and about the Human Rights Act, free of charge. You can call them at 505-827-6838, or you can use their online request form. In addition to the Better Balance legal helpline for workplace rights, they also have some great resources like sample letters to give to your employer about the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. So they are a wealth of resources, or if you're looking for some additional information or some help with this process. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any more questions, feel free to send me an email at my email address here, or give our organization a call at 505-244-0502, and you can also visit us on our Facebook or Instagram at Southwest Women's Law Center.